LinkedIn. Go ahead and put your LinkedIn URL in the chat box, ladies and gentlemen. We want to make this a time of networking as well. But as we go live on Facebook, just give us a second and then we'll rock and roll.
I think I'm connected to almost everybody on this call, but if not, the link is there to connect with. And I'm not sure how many of everyone has met before, but we may have all been in the same room once or twice before. But that's okay. That's good. Awesome. Is everyone getting, back in the swing of things, fall changing over seasons, if you have kids back in school, all that fun stuff? Good evening, Megathon. Nice to have you with us. You can go ahead and drop your LinkedIn in the chat box. This is a great opportunity to network with other people that you may not have had a chance to meet yet. We're definitely encouraging that for sure. So we're pretty lucky here. We have an international group here. We have South Africa, right? Megathon, South Africa. I'm in Canada. Ariane is in Norway.
Netherlands today.
Netherlands. And then Americans as well. So this is kind of cool.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the technology has worked well this morning and we are recording in multiple places. You're welcome to check out the live stream and the recording later. Thank you for muting yourself in the background as we rock and roll and get ready to share screen. And again, please feel free to put your LinkedIn or social media URL in the chat box. That's part of the benefit of coming to the VIP Zoom room and being able to interact live with us here in the room. So ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Let's make sure that I have the right screen up. Give me a second. All right. Can everybody see the screen popping up as I prepare to share? Stacy, if you want to double check Facebook, make sure that we're showing the right screen and all that good stuff. Give me a thumbs up or a little note or a little happy face or something in the background that we can rock and roll. All right, today is September 9th. But listen, if you're watching this live or in a recording, this information is going to help you tremendously. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to be able to share with you over the next 2 hours how to rock and roll with your marketing and then how to clarify your vision in the middle of all this crazy times that we're living in right now. And really, it seems like every 10, some say every 7 to 10 years, there's these chaos moments or these blips in the matrix, if you will. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that on a deep level with our guest, Arjan Visser from the Netherlands. And you'll definitely want to look him up, grab his name. Arjan, if you want to, put your link in the chat box as well, people can be able to look you up and connect with you as well. Of course. And let's go ahead and get started. Find your future and communicate with excellence. Give me a yes in the chat box if you want to find a little bit more clarity in your future and communicate with excellence. So we're going to start with the communication piece, the marketing piece, and then Arjan's going to go really deep with us. And you'll want to put your thinking caps on for that, ladies and gentlemen, for sure. I'm Timothy Morgan, founder, CEO of Giver Marketing Network, and we're glad to be able to bring in power partners and guests to be able to help us in these combination masterclasses. Many times organizations will charge thousands of dollars for this type of information, but we're here to be able to bless you and get you going with your company, organization, whether you're a community leader or whether you're a business leader, we're here to help you, okay? We love helping causes and companies doing good in the world. Here's some kind words folks are saying about us online. This is one of the reasons that we're highest rated on the planet for what we do when it comes to marketing. Okay, so let's jump into the marketing piece together. Bob Berg is one of our heroes, one of our favorite authors. He has many good resources available, but one of the most quoted business phrases I've ever heard is, all things being equal, we do business with those that we know, like, and trust. Now, some say this was not originated with him. That's okay. He's known for making it famous. Okay, this phrase is one of those phrases that I think will just keep living on. It's just one of those good ones. And so we recommend picking up resources like the Go Giver. And by the way, it's worth noting that people do pay more to those they respect. And so there's an element of your brand or your organization that needs to be respectable. It's kind of like dressing up for a business meeting. You know, you want to look sharp, you want to look the part. And so we want to encourage you to think about marketing as an exercise in building trust. Starts with knowing somebody, then maybe seeing if you're aligned and if you like them, and then you build enough trust to be able to do some kind of exchange of value. And I say it that way on purpose. We're not out to just sell somebody, right, Deb? We're not out to just sell somebody something just because we have a quota. There needs to be an alignment, so there's a long-term value exchange that is at least possible, right? There's definitely urgency in some cases, but it's at least possible. And by the way, love Deb's resources on the sales side of this, so super fun. Deb, if you want to put, just remind people a little bit about yourself in the chat box, that'd be totally fine to do that, because you're one of the power partners that we brought into to help the team on these type of things when it comes to sales. Okay, so coaching is the privilege of drawing out potential within a person or a team. And we're excited to be able to not only present some information today, but also let you know that we're generally in more of a coaching mode where we're asking questions, and then people are really bringing their strengths to the table, and we're drawing out more of those strengths. That's what coaching is. Consulting is a very different deal in that you're trying to find the pain and the problems and bringing advice and solutions immediately. We're a little bit more of a slow growth, a slow build kind of organization, that we coach along the way and ask a lot of questions, and then we lean into your strengths. We have others in our network that are a little bit more geared toward the consulting side, maybe more power partners, but we really focus on coaching because, well, quite frankly, the results are 5x. I mean, look, 529% ROI according to Pyramid Resource Group. So we want to encourage you to consider coaching when it comes to your marketing. Here's the blueprint that we generally rally around when we're coaching with clients. So we want to give you an overview of that today, and then for 1 hour, and then Arjan is going to get into some of the more clarity around the chaos that's happening in our world, and bring some true vision and some future perspective to what we're doing as individuals and businesses. Okay, so get ready, buckle up, get your note-taking devices out, however you do that, and let's talk about the Giver Marketing Blueprint, which is really a foundational piece for any organization to get the word out with class. There's a difference between getting the word out and getting the word out with class. There's some biblical references about building your house on a rock, not on the sand. And we feel like this blueprint has come to us as more of like a foundational or a rock-like foundation to build a house for your company. Okay, so ultimately, if you pay close attention and you attend some of our future Tuesday morning masterclasses, you have the ability to earn. This is not a lottery. This is not a raffle. You can actually earn this. This is literally the value that people pay for our services all the time. $1,500 value is yours if you pay close attention today and then attend a few more masterclasses with us. Okay. So here we go. This $1,500 value will include a 30-minute session from a certified marketing coach, visibility service upon request for 3 months, and some graphic design to enhance your brand. And we're going to get into why that's important and all that, but ultimately you'll have some of the first steps taken care of for you if you pay close attention. We love to give. We love to give with intention. We love to give to those who are on a mission with a purpose and doing good in the world. So we want to bless you with that if you pay close attention. All right. So this is worth screenshotting or asking Stacy about later on. Stacy, wave your hand. You're going to be helping us with all sorts of things today. This is going to be great. Usually in our 30-day challenges, which by the way, this is the first session in our 30-day challenge. So you're kind of getting a head start technically by attending this masterclass. But you're going through basically session number 1 of 4 in this combination masterclass. Okay. So if you end up taking action on a few of these assignments today, and then you attend some of the future master classes, you will earn that reward. There's 7 of them total. Okay. After coaching and collaborating with thousands of causes and companies over the last decade, guess what happened, ladies and gentlemen? A pattern emerged. I should have said that in a really deep voice, right, Ariane? A pattern emerged. And really, that's what happened is me and a few others, we were consulting, coaching, collaborating with all sorts of organizations. And we started seeing this like, oh, wow. Okay, so the top 5% of these organizations or community leaders or business owners had their stuff dialed, their marketing dialed in. I mean, their branding was dialed into at least an A- level, at least that, right? Their visibility, they were able to be found. They could promote well with effectiveness. They understood how to communicate to their audience in that way. They were able to nurture and follow up well. That's what brought them to the top 5% of their industry. It wasn't their good product, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't their great service. When I ask somebody what separates them from everybody else, and they say good customer service, I mean, you can grow into that being one of the best in the world, like a Chick-fil-A or, some other organization that has amazing customer service and they're known for that, but that's just a part of your brand. That's not what separates you. I mean, it can be a distinctive, but it's not ultimately what separates you. We'll talk about that in a minute. But those who understand how to start with their brand, then become visible, then promote well, then nurture and follow up well, will become top 5, 10% of their industry. It's just what we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. It's one of those things where it sets you up for success in the conversations around decision meetings. Some would call them sales meetings. We call them decision meetings. But, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't have good marketing communication with your audience, good luck with your sales. I mean, that's like pulling teeth, man, to try to get somebody to commit to some kind of some kind of level of decision, right? So 5 micro assignments, what you want to pay attention to today. There's 3 more coming up here in the next few weeks, but today is where you really want to pay attention to these 4, okay? This will get you started. You'll be over halfway to your reward if you complete these, okay? Let's talk about marketing. Marketing is pre-sales communication. Can I hear an amen in the chat box? Pre-sales communication. Let's not complicate it, ladies and gentlemen. Marketing is everything that happens around communication before the decision meeting. If we think about it that way, of course, I'm a marketing guy, right? Highest rated marketing coach in the country. But listen, if we think about it that way, then what ends up happening is everything we do, we think about how to improve it. That includes your branding, your visibility, promotion, and nurturing, obviously, but so much falls underneath that we need to define marketing really well. How do you track your marketing effectiveness? Well, you find out how many conversations you're having. That'll tell you right away whether or not your marketing is effective. If you have, only a handful of conversation and you need dozens and dozens of conversations, then your marketing is not, the engine's not on full. It's only working partially. So we want to encourage you to take your tracking of those conversations as your KPI, your key performance indicator of whether your marketing is going well or not. The conversations and appointments you have in your database on your calendar is is a key indicator of whether marketing is working well. There's other, clicks over here and views over here and eyeballs on this. Those are all okay. Those are good to kind of give you some clues, but ultimately your key performance indicators are really around conversations and appointments. That has to happen in almost every industry. Sales, you're tracking transactions. You're tracking decision meetings and transactions ultimately at the end of the day. So they work together, but they're separate funnels. So somebody might you might be a business dev person, or you might have a small company and you have all the hats. Just remember when you're in the marketing, when you have the marketing hat on and when you have the sales hat on. To look at Deb's resource around sales, and that'll help you identify a little bit of this. But ultimately, we're going to talk about marketing today. Okay, marketing gets you to the red zone, and sales gets you to the end zone if you're an American football fan. Put the name of your favorite football team in the chat box, so I know that I'm talking to the right audience here, and see if we have. I'm talking American football here. Okay, if I get any soccer teams in the chat box, we're going to have conversation. But and I love soccer. Look, I used to do one of those handspring throw-ins on the sideline when I was younger, playing soccer, doing that, statewide championship games. I love soccer, but I'm talking about football right now. Okay, American football. Here we go. So let's get you to that red zone, right? So that you can punch it in. You can grab that touchdown. You can make sure that there's points scored on the board and have victory in that way. Okay. But listen, prospecting is technically marketing, not sales. So let's keep that in mind. When we're marketing and prospecting and reaching out and connecting, we're not selling anything yet. Stacy's having fun with all the football comments in the chat box. All right. So branding, let's define it. By the way, Stacy, do we have like a top football team, American football team that ended up showing up multiple times?
Not multiple times. Nope. We have Bears, Colts, Eagles,
Nice.
Liverpool. Daniel Rogers is my fantasy football team. AFX Ajax is Ariane. And then I said Winnipeg Bombers.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to accept. All right. This is going to start a fight, but I'm going to accept. I'm pretty peaceable guy. So I'm going to accept all of those as valid contributions to the conversation, whether it's American football or look, if you can get close to the goal, that's all I care about. So if it's American football or real football, according to Ariane, I know he's going to say that. Then I'm good. Just let's get you close to the goal. Come on, let's get some marketing going for you guys. All right. So
Matthew says Patriots.
All right. Okay. We got some good teams going. I'm going to throw in the 49ers in there. The 49ers. All right. Here we go. Let's get back to branding for a second. By the way, all those teams have great branding. I mean, they put tons of time and effort and money and just all sorts of creativity into it. Your brand represents the sum total of experiences found in the marketplace, right? It's not just whether you win or lose, it's how you handle yourself, right? I'm trying to tie this in. I don't know if I can do it. This equates to how you carved your reputation, right, ladies and gentlemen? Like whether you're a national, level sports team or you're a sole proprietor trying to figure things out, it still all makes sense with this definition from Michelle Van Otten. She's amazing. Her definition of branding is amazing. By the way, I recommend connecting with her. She's pretty approachable. Really good voice. If marketing is communication, your brand is how people feel when experiencing your company or organization. How do people feel? What do they say to people right after they've experienced you? They say that person was pushy. Do they say that person had a killer, vision and direction, and we're totally aligned? They made me feel super comfortable and encouraged and strengthened. Or do they make you feel like you're stupid and you don't know what you're doing and super complicated? Like how do you feel when you're done talking to a brand or an individual representing a brand? Like that's a big deal. That's your customer experience. That's your potential decision meetings, either coming in the door or running away. And that's where your brand becomes extremely powerful. Okay, so when you're branding and when you're looking at your brand, you have to have pretty good clarity on who your audience is. If we don't have who you're called to, then the passion around your brand will kind of, it'll go black and white. It'll go really dull. It'll go really gray. You want some color and some real clean, like, focus on who you're called to. Pedro Adao says, who is your who? And it's a great question, because if you find out who you're called to and who your who is, then your purpose and alignment and vision and future and everything Arjan's going to talk about here in the next hour is very clear. We like working with causes, companies, community leaders doing good in the world. They have a purpose, they have a mission, they're doing something more in the world than making a few dollars. Money is good fuel to put in the tank. We need it to function, but it's only for sustainability purposes, right? So companies and community leaders that have a bigger vision, bigger mission, bigger purpose than just making the dollar is who we want to work with. We love the fact that money allows us to be sustainable for our mission, but it's all about the mission. It's all about the vision. It's all about the future. And so we want to encourage you to identify your people. Who are you called to? And by the way, when you're looking at your branding, it's important to also understand yourself. You're as a leader, as a person who is developing your brand. That's why Arjan's going to go deep with us here in a little bit. Clarity, creativity, and consistency is almost like it's a bit of a personality test or an assessment on a screen. Now, listen, we can all be clear, we can all be creative, we can all be consistent if we practice. I get that. We get that. We all get that. Okay. We're balanced human beings. We get that. Okay. And Arjan's even going to talk about creativity and clarity later, but ultimately you currently right now have a strength in one of these three. What is your current strength? I'm not saying you can't develop others. I'm just saying, what is your current strength as a brand, as an individual, as a sole proprietor, as an entrepreneur, as a community leader? What is your current strength? Is it clarity? Do you have extreme clarity in how you communicate with your audience? I'm not talking just internal clarity. I'm talking about communicating with your audience. They're tied together, but I'm talking about communication and marketing. Creativity, are you like uber creative all the time and you practice that all the time and you've gotten really good at it? Do you enjoy being the steady Freddy, consistent person? Put that in the chat box. Are you more clarity, creativity, or consistency by experience, by practice, kind of by default? Which one do you enjoy the most? The clarity part.
Creativity happening. I'm consistency, lots of clarity.
It's funny how it's kind of
Creative.
It depends on who's in the audience, like who's listening and who we're talking. Like there's such a mix, right? God's designed us in some really cool ways, and some of us have leaned into different parts of this, right? So that'll be fun to kind of banter about that a little bit more another time. It's good to know that about yourself, because then you can surround yourself with kind of a team that likes to lean into different things, right? A team is the only way to build a sustainable organization. You can't do it alone, ladies and gentlemen. And we consider ourselves to be, part of your team. So glad to help. All right, sensory branding. 5 senses. We've all heard about it. We've studied it in science class. We've talked about it just in passing. Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. If you're on point in at least most of these areas, depending on if you're meeting with somebody in person or virtually or whatever, like it just depends. At least those first 2, if you're in virtual meetings, sight and sound, right? But if you're meeting in person, all 5 of these are very important. You want to know why more people will make a decision? Deb, tell me if I'm off on this. More people will make a decision more quickly if you meet in person, because they've had a chance to experience all 5 senses when it comes to you as a person. They're picking up on all sorts of cues. Is that right? I mean, okay, all right. So the decision meeting is predicated by people's experiences in these 5 senses. You can get really deep in this if you want to just think about it. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, am I speaking with clarity? Am I enunciating? Can they hear me? Are we in a loud room that's virtual or in person? Like either way, what is happening from the senses perspective so that they can experience my brand well? Gosh, some of us are buying new cameras, new microphones. We're getting new backdrops. Like we're trying to figure everything out, lighting, everything we can to make sure that we are clearly understood and communicate. That's why video is so powerful. Because whether we're meeting, recording a video for, an evergreen project where people can see it for long periods of time, or whether we're just having a live Zoom with somebody or going live on Facebook, it's important that the video and the lighting be at least at a place where people can see what's going on. And it's up to 50 times more effective than just using a picture or an auditory experience alone. Like a phone call, for example, it's good, but a video chat is a little bit better. In person is a little bit better in many ways, because you're getting more data, more input from that person, and you can decide whether you're aligned with them and you want to commit to some kind of exchange of value or not, right? So the marketing around this and the psychology and the sociology and the biology of all this stuff is so powerful. So think about the 5 senses when you're looking at your brand. All right, we're going to skip a couple of these things for sake of time because I want to leave time for questions and answers. But authority branding is basically hanging around the right people and becoming the expert in your industry. So spend time with the 5 people you want to be like. I mean, just figure it out. Like find the people you want to rub shoulders with. Don't be afraid or insecure. Become the expert by being in the room with experts. Like that's how God designed this. So let's roll, right? It's not fake it till you make it. It's spend the right time with the right people so that you can grow into the giant you're meant to be, right? I'm going to start preaching now. I better be careful. All right. So tell your origin story. You might think, what does origin story have to do with my brand? Everything. Everything. When we think about Apple products, worldwide products, there's a story about 2 guys in Silicon Valley in the United States working out of their garage, trying to sell these computers. And then, they realized they could get some investment. And then now they go global because they want to come up with some innovative technology that would connect the world. Oh, that's a story. And for folks who have not heard that story or seen the documentaries or anything like that, it's ingrained in their brand. Like it's all a part of their whole brand. Okay. And it's super smart for us as, solopreneurs and small teams and even multi-million or billion-dollar companies to make sure their story is continually being communicated. And so we want to challenge you, even today, as you're watching this, share with us your origin story. Do it in a private group. In the bottom right corner of your screen is a little private group. Stacy will put that in the chat box so you can post your first action assignment. Hint, is to share a 1-minute origin story. I think some of us on this training today, this masterclass, have done this, but I'm going to encourage you, do it again. Keep practicing. Practice. If you have a 10-minute phone call with somebody, if you have time for nothing else, wouldn't it be good to just swap stories? I mean, that tells you whether you're aligned, whether you have connection, whether you even like talking to this person, whether you have anything of common interest, whether there's a value exchange potential. It tells you everything. Your brand without a story is really not very strong. You have to be able to share your story in 1 minute. Like, for example, my story is I was involved in community leadership, nonprofit leadership for years and years and years. Also ended up buying, selling, building small businesses along the way from a teenager, actually, in order to earn money for college and other things, and found that it was just difficult to bust through that, certain barriers financially. And so went looking for marketing professionals to help, got a little bit of help, but they weren't very consistent. Sometimes they'd be extremely talented, but I couldn't get a hold of them after a few months, or, it just didn't, the freelance and the gig economy in my price range wasn't really as effective long-term. So we ended up starting Giver Marketing as a solution to give options for companies and causes and community leaders who needed some marketing, but didn't have the big agency budget. They didn't have 10, 20, 50, $100,000 a month to spend on their marketing or more. What if somebody just wanted to start with $500 or $1,000 or, some smaller amounts? Well, that's what we have now is Giver Marketing Network. So that's a little bit of my story, a little bit of my background with kind of this transition moment or aha moment with why and how we help our who. I peppered in a little bit of all those pieces so that people get a picture. I have 5 kids. I have roots in California, Texas, and Oregon. I can go into all the other little details in the conversation, but that's my origin story as it stands. You can highlight different pieces of your origin story, but you generally have a kind of some common threads throughout that story. That is one of the most powerful things to distinguish you in your brand, not customer service. That's like a given. Like if you don't want to treat people well, don't even be in business. But your origin story is what really separates you. Okay. So we want to encourage you, post your origin story, a 1-minute video in our private Facebook group. Go to givermarketing.com/group for those who are just listening, and pop in your origin story. We'll give you some feedback. It's a safe place. Nobody's going to make fun of you. We haven't had anybody make fun of anybody yet, Stacy, right? And if they do, they're gone. I mean, we don't.
That's no tolerance for bullying. We want to encourage and uplift everyone and give positive feedback.
Cool. All right. So step 2 of the Giver Marketing Blueprint is visibility. Can you be found? It's a fair question, right? If somebody meets you at a meeting, or hears about your name or picks up your book or, whatever, like, how do they find you? Well, you might have your website sitting there somewhere on a business card or whatever, but you might not. Like they might just, maybe the book got lost or maybe it's in a different place and they just need to remember how to find you. So how do you, in this noisy world, how do you be remembered and found? Well, ultimately you want to be remembered by your story, but then how do you be found? How are you going to be found? Well, be searchable online. Like somebody takes their phone out really quick and says, oh man, God just brought somebody to my mind, or, hey, I just had a thought, maybe I should connect with this person, or, whatever. Like you need to be able to find that person within like 3, 4, 5 seconds. And so if you typed in somebody's first name, their industry, and maybe their region or the city that they're from, something like that, you should be able to find somebody on either social media or Google search or something. You should be able to find somebody. Okay. All right. So we want you to be visible. Or found is another way to put it. Your website is your digital real estate. Everything else is rented. Does that make sense? Give me a yes in the chat box if that makes sense. Your website is your digital real estate. Everything else is rented. Okay, cool. So let me know also in the chat box, please, or in the comments, if you have a Google My Business page. Put GMB if you have a Google My Business page, GMB. Want to make sure you have one. And if you're not sure, just put a question mark. Not sure. And the reason we ask that is because Google My Business is key for this next little tool that we're going to give you. And it's super important. It's worth tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to some companies and organizations. I know some churches and other great organizations who they don't have a Google My Business page. And it's like, oh my goodness, how do people even find, like, how do they find you if they're doing a quick search for churches in the area or for businesses that do this in the area or whatever? Like, Google My Business is becoming a thing. Like you got to have that. It's almost like becoming very similar to almost like a worldwide directory, right? At that point. Free directory tool for you to check and see if you have Google My Business and if other listings are consistent with that is at givermarketing.com/visibility. Thanks to Visibility Vicky, we've been able to offer that to you at no cost. So we want to thank her for that. And if you need any help with that, she has a way to help you kind of get everything dialed in for a small fee. But it's a free tool. You can just check it out and it'll let you know what you need to improve, what you need, where you need to increase your visibility and in what directories to do that, and make sure you're consistent across the board. The more consistent you are, the more Google friendly and search friendly you are. So you want to definitely line all that up together. Okay. Nearly 9 out of 10, probably more than that now. 9 out of 10 people go online before making a buying decision. So you want to be dialed in with your brand and then very visible as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you're leaving impact, money, resources, and conversations on the table. Like you don't want to do that. You want to be branded and you want to be visible, period. Like, and the way you do that is you use tools like this to kind of find out where you are as far as listings online. Givermarketing.com/visibility. And again, there's no cost to use the tool. If you need some help, just reach out to Vicky. All right. 84% of people trust multiple online reviews as much as friends' recommendation. This has to do with, this goes for books, for services, for events, also like organizations, businesses, community leaders, like everybody needs to have some kind words about them online. Otherwise, it's hard to know whether they've been in business for a while. Your visibility becomes impaired or impeded on Google specifically if you don't have some kind words floating around on their review pages. And Stacy's going to even put like not only the tool, but a way for you to give some kind words about Giver Marketing Network online to give you an actual experience of what this feels like on the other end. But the tool, givermarketing.com/gbox, will help you create a very clean, simple link to allow your people to give you kind words very quickly and easily. You'll end up with a link. You send it to people. Some folks will even turn that into a bit.ly, like a really short link. And then you send it to as many people as you want, and they'll give you kind words online. And we even recommend saying it that way. Hey, would you mind giving us some kind words online? Not reviews. Because we all have those people in our family, our friend circles, like you ask them for like feedback or reviews, and they're always in the negative, right? They're like they're like I don't know if they're the prophets of the world or what. I don't know who they are, but they just have this way of talking about the things that need to be improved. And it's like, well, could you at least encourage me a little bit? Goodness gracious. I don't know if they had a bad day sometimes. I don't know but ultimately you just want to ask them for some kind words. And if they're going to give you some negative feedback, just tell them to give it to you personally. Goodness gracious, just do it that way. But anyway, some people don't have social norms dialed in. So it's one of those weird things. Ultimately, you want to give people an easy way to give you kind words online in the form of reviews or whatever, right? Recommendations, those kind of things. All right, so that's a tool for you guys to get your ratings and reviews just dialed in so that people, trust you. Again, we're on a journey of trust here. So it's easy to, the Google review pop-up box will come up once you use that tool. And it's easy for people to give you reviews. This, especially for authors out there, other people that just need some, some good feedback on some of their resources and work. This is really important. All right, so we don't have time to talk too much about offline visibility, but at the end of the day, you want your vehicles and the buildings and the places you meet at to be easy to find. Okay, or conversation starters, or represent you well. Okay. All right. What's your visibility micro assignment? What is it? Post a screenshot of your visibility scan. your visibility, what are we calling it, Stacy? Your visibility report, your visibility assessment. Yeah, it's really, they just scan your some of your online directories and kind of and give you feedback and a report on where you can improve and where you're doing good. And it all ties back to Google My Business. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Just throw them in the chat box. We'll definitely get to them in a next 20 minutes or so. Promotion. Hey, this is the part that most people talk about. This is part 3. Okay. Branding is first, visibility second, in that order. Then you have the right to promote. A good way to say it is promotion happens with greatest effectiveness and least amount of waste when you're branded and visible. So think about it this way. If you're going to put an ad out there somewhere, whether it's online or print, and you're branded well and visible, you'll get a lot better response. We don't recommend people putting a lot of money or time into promotion unless you're branded at least to a certain level and visible, because then you look like you know what you're doing. All right. So ultimately, promotion does matter, but it needs to be done in a step-by-step process, and it's step number 3. Okay. The ICE guideline for promotion is inform, call to action, and engaging with your audience. So a good way to think about it is there's a monologue aspect to informing. It's just creating awareness. Like, it lets people know you exist, basically, right? But there's no real reason or compelling reason is probably more accurate for them to contact you until you give them a call to action. So you want to include a call to action whenever possible. And then what is your responsibility? I engage with them. Many of us are here in the room today because we let you know about this awesome no-cost experience. This won't be no cost forever, by the way. This is a special a time period where you can kind of sneak in the back door, okay? But ultimately, we gave you a call to action. Just click here so you can sign up. Great. And then we engage with some emails and conversations and social media posts and let you know that, yeah, we're on, we're good. We're going to give you some value. Great. So here's the bottom line. Don't gamble with your promotion. If you're spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on your promotional efforts, measure everything, especially in the early days. Like, really just measure everything. And nowadays you can literally measure. There's so many metrics you can follow on when you're putting ads out there. We have some companies that we've helped increase call volume by 1,000 calls a year. We have other companies we've helped triple their revenue with certain kinds of ads and different things. We know what we're doing when it comes to this, but ultimately we want to make sure we're tracking everything and make sure that those are the right kind of responses coming in. Okay. And you need to know how much it costs to actually engage in a conversation or an appointment, right? You got to know how much that's costing you in time or money, either one. All right, referrals, events, print, online, radio, and television. This is a good list for you to think about. Which one or two of these are we going to dominate? Here's a hint. Referrals is going to be one of those two. Like, that's like the lifeblood of every company. If you don't have referrals, kind words and referrals and kind of a lot of love happening, around your ecosystem, then good luck expanding or growing. It's just, you're going to be hitting your head against a brick wall if you don't have referrals. So let's make sure that those referrals are part of your, top 1 or 2 or 3 methods of promoting. Okay. Track it, create a system around it, give rewards around it, give a lot of encouragement around it. And look, I'm going to ask you right now, please let people know about these master classes. Please refer people to these rooms. This is valuable information that if somebody doesn't have their head or their mind around modern marketing, this is where you want to be to set your foundation. I don't know how many clients we've worked with. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing and they didn't have their foundation built. They could have got 2, 3, 4, 5 times the results if they just had these basic things in place. This isn't rocket science. It's a process by which you build your foundation for what you're called to do. Okay. So please let people in the door. Don't let this be a secret. Like, share it with your groups and your people. Stacy, if you want to put that challenge link in the chat box, then people can invite folks to some of our upcoming Tuesday challenges, and there's other ones too that we have as well. But those Tuesday challenges are going to be a good place for people to come right now. Okay. All right. So referrals, events, print, online, radio, and podcast. This is a report acrostic that'll help you remember how to best promote your brand. Pick 2 or 3, at least 2, and dominate it. Just roll with it. And we could talk forever about referrals and events and print. I mean, Chick-fil-A is a good example. 25% increase in foot traffic using some print and now some online aspects of their cow appreciation day. That's kind of a fun one. Online, we could talk an hour on just that, but reach out to us. We can help you with that. Gosh, we've been starting to get some clients connected with some great radio and podcast opportunities. Stacy has a background with that and some other things. So we're glad to be able to connect folks with opportunities to get the word out. But we want to make sure you're branded and visible. Then we can start promoting and getting thousands and thousands and thousands of eyeballs on what you're doing. Okay. All right. So what's the micro assignment then? Post some kind of promotional piece, digital, take a screenshot or digital in nature and just put it in the Facebook group. And we'll get you feedback on that and help you improve your promotional pieces. It could literally be a link to a radio interview. Deb or others, it could be a link to your book that has some kind of call to action to that page. It could be an Amazon link or, something like that. We just need to know that you're promoting yourself in some way and give you some feedback on it. Engaging prospects with continued intentional conversations is part number 4. It's called nurturing. A lot of people call it follow-up. Look, I'll follow up with all sorts of people, but really what we want to have is a mindset of nurturing these conversations, these relationships. It's more than just follow-up. It is a follow-up system, yes, but it's a nurturing mindset. We're not going to go deep into all these, but I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what our nurturing system is within Giver Marketing Network. What we recommend at least considering. Maybe some minor details can be changed for you guys, but gals, but ultimately 80% of decision meetings occur after a minimum of 5 trust building interactions, right? So we want to get to those decision meetings. Once you get there, I mean, you can talk to Deb and others about how to handle those, but we just want to get you there. We want to get you to the red zone. Like, we want to get you close, like to where there's some kind of trust that's built to that level that a commitment can be established at least in the next, couple of weeks, few months, maybe, and in some cases a little bit longer, but ultimately you want to be able to move toward that trust building interaction. All right. So everything you do, remember, is marketing. It just gets you to that decision meeting. Once the decision meeting happens, the hat changes. Now they're asking buying questions, and you're asking them more questions. See if there's really a commitment, an alignment here. Like, you're getting really deep at that point. We just want to get you to the meeting so you can have a chance. Okay. Introductions. Don't sell anything. When you first meet somebody, do not sell anything. Tell a story, get their contact information, and follow up with class. Brief email, ask good questions. Right, ladies and gentlemen? When you're sending an email one-on-one, especially, when you're sending an email to somebody privately or personally, make sure you ask a question. Otherwise, you're literally saying, I don't want you to respond. Think about it that way. If you end a sentence with a period, you've just ended the conversation. If you end the sentence with a question, you've just encouraged a dialogue, essentially, is what's happened. Same with verbal conversations too, right? Social media, hey, don't be bashful. We have a whole training on this. We'll talk about this in the next few weeks. Give something of value, something they value. Very, very important. They need to find out what they value. And if it falls in line with your mission, then give them something that's memorable, that would be valuable to them, that would keep you connected and aligned for your collaboration and your mission and your focus. Okay. Invite somewhere you're already going to be. We already encouraged you to invite some folks to our next challenge. Our next challenge session is probably more accurate. Stacy put a link in the chat box. You're welcome to do that. But we encourage you to do that. I mean, that brings credibility to you by bringing your people to a room where you're learning and growing and developing, and it's an environment of growth, right? So it gets people inspired and encouraged and strengthened. Personal notes through social media or text message or whatever it is. Don't forget about those little letters and cards. There's programs now that help you do that in a very authentic and relational way. Phone calls. Hey, here's the thing about phone calls. Unless you're selling a low ticket item, do not try to sell on the phone. Think of it as a discovery or an exploration or a story swapping conversation. Think of it that way. And then if there's an alignment, set up a Zoom chat or an in-person meeting, or in some cases you can do a longer phone call, I guess, if you had to. But in today's world, if you can, just drop into a Zoom chat as a second meeting. Oftentimes a follow-up email after a phone call will look like this: notes plus part 2 of our conversation via Zoom. And so that follow-up, even after the phone call, helps you think about the phone call itself. It needs to be short and sweet, 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes if you're really having a great conversation. But ultimately, you want to just think about what would the next steps be if we're aligned, and how do I keep this pretty short and create some some relational connection here. And story swapping and exploration, asking a few questions, that'll get you where you need to go on that. Then set up your next meeting, which is really more of a decision meeting, probably, or at least a closer step to it, right? Don't leave long voicemails unless you would prefer not to have a call back. Long voicemails really tell people that you're wasting their time and your time. With rare exception, unless it's a personal friend or a family member or something like that, then you can leave a long voicemail. Hey, just thinking about you, wanted to this and that, and go into how's so-and-so doing. You can go into all that with a personal family member or something. But as far as everybody else, the longest voicemail I'll leave, which I leave maybe 10 voicemails a year. And the longest one I'll leave, and if I can't get a hold of them any other way, is, hey, it's Timothy Morgan. Thought I'd just reach out. I had a quick question for you. Here's my phone number, and I'll repeat it twice. That's it. Because I do not want to front load that conversation with a bunch of wasted words and space, and people do not appreciate that. So don't leave voicemails unless you absolutely have to and you can't communicate with them in any other way. Okay. All right. I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but those are some good rules. Okay. Let's get you to the green so you can put it in. Move at the speed of trust. At some point, you got to ask for the sale, but only after trust is established and there's a good fit. So your micro assignment for your last piece here, your fourth assignment, your nurturing micro assignment, is to post your nurturing touch points in the group. You can literally type them out. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, I send them an email. Number 3, I connect with them on social, whatever it is. Like, find 3 or 4 or 5 of those nurturing touch points. And they're all valuable. We don't even think about them sometimes because we do them just organically, naturally. But think of them as a system so that you can repeat that. So your assistant or one of your team members can help you monitor that. And that way you'll be more successful long-term because you're not leaving valuable conversations in your database. You continue them, right? All right, so your 4 micro assignments are branding, which is your story video, put them in the group. Visibility scan, put it in the group. Promotional piece, just take a screenshot or put a link of something that kind of promotes you. Nurturing process, type it out, pop it in the group, and then you're more than halfway there to your reward. It's a $1,500 value. If you have any questions, ask Stacy or myself, or ask somebody in the group. There's 3 more action assignments that are associated with our Tuesday morning sessions, which Stacy already gave you access to that. Givermarketing.com/challenge will get you to register for future sessions that will allow you to earn that reward. You can also learn more about that in the group itself. So givermarketing.com/group will get you there. All right, we only have like a minute or 2 or 3 for some questions. We have a little break time too, so I can always stick around for that. But ladies and gentlemen, I know that was a fire hose. Some of you have been through that before, but it's a good refresher. And then others, that are watching the recording of this or some other space or time continuum might have some questions. So feel free to put those in the chat box or in the comments. But any questions specifically about branding, visibility, promotion, or nurturing that we covered today, feel free to raise your hand here in the live session and we'll answer those. That'll be good benefit for everybody that's watching. So I'd appreciate any kind of questions. Stacy, you got anything that's been coming up?
No, nothing that I see coming up in the chat box. Just some good positive comments, feedback. Deb saying it's so much more effective to be face-to-face to get a decision from the prospect. Yes, I agree on that, Deb.
Good call.
For sure. Yeah, we just kind of, everyone's sort of agreeing and going along. And this is a very good note. Deb, I'm not sure if everyone's read this, but Deb does teach a referral system that gets you warm introductions versus names and numbers. And she's got a very loving, caring way of teaching. So if you're looking for anything like that, definitely reach out to Deb. And she's
That's why we love partnering with folks who have a similar style of connecting, and it's more relational. Love that. Awesome. So who's going to commit to posting their 1-minute video this week? Give me a yes in the chat box or in the comments if you're going to commit to posting your 1-minute video this week.
Awesome. I see some Daniel, Diane, Matthew. Awesome.
Cool.
And I'll post the link to the Facebook group right now, and then you are welcome to join.
We are not a Toastmasters organization, but this is probably the closest thing that comes to like practicing your public speaking. And if nothing else, just grab it. We don't use elevator pitches. We use elevator stories.
We have a question here. Matthew, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're welcome to ask your question.
Hey guys, I was wondering, do you have any quick tips on how to connect with a specific niche market rather than just like a general marketing strategy, like connecting with like specific, like maybe refined your niche market down quite a bit to where you got your who defined pretty well, but you need to reach out to those people. You need to find those people. Any just quick tips on that, or places I can go to learn about it?
Matthew, are you talking business to business or are you talking business to consumer?
Business to consumer.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that there's groups. Generally, we start with organic methods, and low cost methods, right? There's groups. We have some social media experts and some other folks within our network, but what I've been learning and understanding as we put the tribe together and everybody's been kind of putting their tips in the hat is there's some amazing groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn,
right?
That you would think that LinkedIn is just B2B. Well, there's some groups on LinkedIn that are more conducive for people actually asking questions and potentially being consumers for different products and services. I mean, there's groups.
That's a good thought.
gosh, there's groups that have such targeted language in it as the group title that you could almost live in like 4 or 5 groups and just be that guy that knows about this thing without being pitchy, like just kind of be a part of the group,
Right.
be your authentic self in the group. And then every once in a while, people will reach out or ask you questions, or shoot, if people are asking enough questions, you could reach out to them directly, privately, and just be like,
Right.
hey, I saw your question. We do a whole training on social media here in the next, 2 weeks, Stacy?
Yes, the last Tuesday of the month, social media best practices.
That's right. Yeah, last Tuesday of the month. You'll wanna hit that link that Stacy put in the chat box. It'll get you
Awesome.
access
Thank
to
you.
it. Yep, for sure. Glad to help.
Another thought that I have for you, Matthew, is how are you leveraging your LinkedIn account? So are you posting regularly? Are you commenting? Are you direct messaging, asking to connect with people that you actually have on your LinkedIn account? That's another great way too, to introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, I've been pushing into my LinkedIn for about a year now. And in the last few months, especially with direct messaging, just trying to go deeper with people basically that I have connections with and start conversations with them. But I haven't been too pushy with the marketing because I've just noticed like there's just not a lot of success with that. Like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. I mostly get oh great, thanks, that's cool, sort of a thing. So I've just been trying to like start conversations, and see where it goes basically via direct messaging. But I could post more. I don't post all that much. So
I do encourage you to come to our this coming Tuesday is our LinkedIn appointment strategy system that we teach about. So I do encourage you to join that session and learn about that as well. That might be very helpful to you and how to use your LinkedIn profile.
That LinkedIn strategy would be probably most conducive for generating power partnerships.
Yeah.
And that way your 10, 20, 30 or 40 power partners will know who your niche is, and then they'll keep their eyes and ears open for you on that. And you can establish even some reciprocal games or ways of making introductions to each other. We'll definitely help you with that. Same link, just givermarketing.com/challenge, and you'll get access to some of those sessions coming up. That'll be good. That'll be helpful. Cool.
All right, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a 5-minute break. I'll be back in about a minute or two and answer any more questions. Stacy will be here too, but we were joking about, hey, how do we put a picture up on the screen that lets people know there's a break? And it could be a bio break, it could be a stretch break, it could be whatever kind of break you want. But sometimes in our network, we joke around about taking a prayer break. I'm going to take a prayer break. I'll be right back. So I'm going to do that. We'll be back soon. Arjan, what do you got for us? Let people know so they know as they're taking a break.
Yeah, well, when they recover from you as a fire hose, then I will just turn up the speed a bit and we have some more water. I really want to redefine the perspective of vision and give you some tools to accelerate your future and to use the overt word to make sure you accelerate to your promised land.
Love it. I look forward to it. I was looking at some of the content that you're bringing today. I'm like, oh man, I'm excited. I'm so excited. And you've helped our organization so much. Like the deep thinking, the deep waters you're about to take us into, I'm just like, it might be shallow for you, but it's deep for a lot of us. So I'm excited. So this will be fun.
See you in a minute.
This next part with Ariane is just going to blow your mind as to what he has and what he brings forward. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced him before, but he's definitely got some interesting insights in how he teaches his methods.
Well, I will live up to that expectation.
All right, Ariane, let's rock and roll. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can kind of get yourself dialed in there on your end, and let's make sure I do that properly. Cool. All right, I think you're set.
Here we go. Back on track. You said so much, Timothy, and I just want to say to everyone, like, I've heard your message so many times, and I made 2 pages of notes again. So I hope I'm learning. So thank you for that one.
That used to be 4 masterclasses, Ariane.
I know. I've done them a couple of times, and I feel like I have to do them again. So,
yeah. Well, I know that you're bringing us some deeper waters here that sometimes feels like a flyover for you, but it's really good. So I'm excited. Give us what you got, man. Let's do it.
Thank you. Well, like promised, we continue with the vision part, the second part, and actually there are 2 topics that for me jumped out of this massive amount of stuff that we could talk about when we talk about the future. And so I try to give you like a flyover, and at the same time some action steps to continue thinking about your future. And then when you think about the future, how do you realign your business? So my name is Arjan Visser, and I work as a futurist strategist. Our business is called Business Revivalists, and it's a pleasure to be in this session to help you. I try to ask questions. If not, just raise your hand and ask me a question. So let's go on. And actually, I thought I'd just draw 3 boxes. So I'm a whiteboard person, not a PowerPoint person. So I try to get as close to the whiteboard with the sheets, the sharing. And I got 3 topics that I want to talk about. And you could say there are boxes, but actually all topics go crisscross all the boxes. So we'll talk about chaos, which is a good place. I just want to tell you from the start, chaos is the best place you can be, because that's where new things are born. I talk about future, and I talk about engaging, which actually connects to many things we already talked about. Well, on your end this morning, on my end, it's getting dark outside. So can't talk about the future without talking about the past and the present. It's like actually the future is mostly now, but we are completely influenced, controlled, limited by our past experiences. So understanding the past gives us really valuable tools to recognize the future in the now. So just to give you an overview, we live currently in the information age, not in the technology age. So the whole digitalization of our businesses that we hear all over, still happening. It's probably still valid, but it's not the new thing. It's not the current thing. It is more like what I call the backlog. And you have to sometimes you have to bring your house back in order to continue. But the last decade was mainly about seeing. Like every business talked about a Vision 2020. That was not just branding. That was the timeline. And it was an age of seeing. And currently, or actually just go into it, it was also a time where we started to shift from profit perspective in our business to more like a person, people, planet, purpose perspective, which we saw, and that's always what you see in history. People are against something, they start their own business. But sometimes it has like, it swings from left to right, it ends up in the middle. So we saw many social enterprises. Currently, we see less social enterprises, which I believe is a good thing, because if you can't add value and can't get a reward, so they left a bit the profit out, because we had so much profit. So now we see that things go slowly together. We also see that it was the age where everything got centered around the process. And we lost actually the whole human touch in the business. And this human touch was replaced by, we need to know the data, it needs to be compliant, it needs to be traceable. It's all about performance. We still talk about high performing people in a business, which is a bit weird because I think there's something more. If you look to the future, we talk about that 40+% new jobs will appear, not knowing what those jobs are. Actually, the media says 40 to 60% of our current jobs disappear. But I'm always a positive person. I think, oh, new opportunities, new jobs. So people are afraid that robotics takes over our business. No, they will set us free so that we can do what we as humans are good for to do. But we don't know yet what it is, but we talk about a lot of skills and just check it. It's in education, you hear it a lot. But the bottom line, it comes to that we start to look at a new type of wisdom, a type of wisdom where creativity, integrity, and excellence are really the key elements. While we currently live in a type of wisdom of it needs to be predictable, repeatable, proven. So there is this tension in a shift in wisdom, which brings us to the age we live in now. And I believe it's the age of voice. 2020 was the year of utterance. And I know that has to do with something with futurists and the Hebrew calendar and the prophetic, which is just another word for futurist. But it was about utterance. And I truly think it is about utterance. It's about your voice and it's about speaking. Like I wrote down in the first hour that it was the clarity, easy to for an understanding message. It was and there was marketing is conversations. You know, it is the topic of the day. What you speak, the story, that will stay. Not the product, but the story. So there is this shift, and we are trying to find out what is our unique voice. Personally, I believe that when you find your voice, you will accelerate to convergence. So it's not always you first have to find convergence before. Now, there is this shift in perspectives, and it's part of the age.
Hold on, Arjan. Hold on, Arjan. You just said a word, convergence. And you and I have dug deep on some of this, but can you explain to the audience and those listening, how do you define convergence?
I will just make it easy. I bring it back to the core of creative thinking. We talked about creativity. And creative thinking is that sometimes we divert, which is the challenge for our brain. We always want to make conclusions, which is what we call convert. So I say in your creativity, you need to divert. And in life, once in a while, you need to convert. So where everything starts to seem together and goes beyond synergy, where your home, your occupation, and society all comes together to a new moment and of rebirth. So a renaissance where we talk in the age about like 2035, that will be where things start to convert. So on a personal level and on a bigger scale, we see once in a while, it just comes back about what it comes to one spot where everything is reborn out of again. In life, we have those stages. And I talked before once about those stages, but there is something of in a human life cycle of 15 years when we have those moments. Age of 13, 30, 45, and you just can continue. And we create a lot of societal excuses for it not to do them, like teenagers, retirement, you know, all those kind of things. Rebirth. And like a friend once says, retirement. Retire your vehicle and move on. So in that perspective, I think the age has been doing that as well. Going back to this slide, I think there is a global awareness, I would nearly say an awakening, that actually it is about people. It's not about technology. It's not about the system, but actually it's about all those things serving people to do what they're called for to do. So that's why I say human-centered. I think that's also in problem solving a key element, not to confuse with humanistic. So I'll explain that later. Well, maybe with classical humanism, but then you have to study the life of Erasmus, which is fascinating as a Christian. You won't recognize yourself in it. So be ready for a surprise. If we look to the ages, I definitely want to look to what we have seen the financial crisis. One of the things, the keywords of marketing was trust. One of the keywords in our time is trust. We said somewhere in 2008, if we can't trust the banks, where are we? Well, guess what? We had a financial crisis. We said in 2020, when all this pandemic, whatever you ever think of the pandemic, whatever you think the source of it is, what we say, if we can't trust the government, where are we? Bam, leadership crisis. So you see that's happening. If we can't trust the media, what do we have? Fake news. Or other way, we have some kind of narratives that are programmed and repeated over and over. And we could adjust our behavior to the narrative. If you hear that 95% over here in Europe, let's make it 80, it's just got their vaccine because the government says it's a good idea. That's because of a narrative. Because if you ask how many percent of the people trust the government, it's a lot lower. So if I just take the numbers, just to tell you, it's the age we live in, not for any fear, but in the US, it's less than 50% that trust the government, less than 40% trust the media, and less than 52%, I think it was, trust business owners. In Europe, it's a little bit more to the, actually more to the left. We lost a little bit more trust in the government, but the media, we still believe it. So we are in the middle of this narrative crisis. But I think in the US, you could typically say, you're definitely in the middle of a leadership crisis, which is not bad because actually that opens the door for what we call reformation. A reformation, yes, I know there's a lot of church history. Just dig into the history. It's not church history. It was the reborn of nations. It was the moment that there was a new type of leadership invented, because the old leadership was what they took a distance from. Actually, we talk about an invitation to find out where our identity lays, where we have ownership, where we should lead ourselves and lead others, and where we give expression to our identity. These things nowadays, like maybe it's the buzzword of 2020, 2021, is decentralization. Well, everything around us, of the parties we don't trust, starts to centralize. That was 500 years ago, the main reason why we kicked out the central governments of Rome.
Any questions at this point, ladies and gentlemen? We're diving into some deep waters here and want to make sure we don't lose anybody in the conversation when it comes to convergence, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to timing, reformation, right? Reformation. But anything that comes to mind at this point.
Yeah, and if you agree, you can also say yes. I heard that's a good thing, or amen. I love to see comments. Yeah, one of the things that I noticed just 2 weeks ago, that everywhere we talk about human rights, there's a lot of social unrest. Like what we see from your end of the world, we see a lot of riots, destructive behavior, but it's all about social rights on one hand, and then the other hand, it's social responsibility, which is what the government uses, the media uses. If you look to decentralized, it's actually about the human responsibility. And I believe that's a key aspect when you talk about your vision as an individual, as a leader of your business, and talk about the future perspective of your business, of your brand, that you should stay away from human rights or social responsibility, but get back to human responsibility. Because it's your responsibility to have your identity worked out, your creativity expressed, your leadership redefined, your ownership clear, starting with your future perspective. If you don't do that, we start up with those quotes of, if you don't live your own dream, you will live someone else's dream. So that's for me the key element of someone with a, I would say, a hungry heart to move on. I skipped this one. I talked about crisis a few times. I think crisis, you can react two ways. You could react to a crisis as, oh, I have to fight it. I have to go back to normal. Or you could say, it's a chaos. It's an invitation to a birthplace for something new. That last one is very intentional. The first one is actually what you hear in all the airwaves. It's because we hear it over here, oh, we have to go back to normal. It's a crisis. We have to fight it. We need a vaccine. We need measurements. We need the state to step in. You know, all those kind of things. But those who see the invitation start spotting new opportunities, or actually creating new opportunities, and move away from the status quo to what I call the future quo. I think this is the only natural way. Going back to normal, like time is quite consistent. It's gone. It's spent, it's gone, it doesn't return. So going back in time makes no sense, especially not when we try to help people, serve people, when we try to live what we feel we are called for. It doesn't make sense to go like on a board game back to square one. But this is actually quite intentional in your how you choose and what you do. So you could say, and this is a bit like, I could talk about this for 4 hours about this small model, but what we tend to do as humans is we always tend to do that convergent thinking. Let's make it simple. Okay, we allow a little bit complicatedness, but at least make it structured. But what if most of the things that are new are unstructured because simply we haven't seen them before? What if we act to things we are sensing? Or maybe we even start doing things before we sense that they are coming. That's where we learn the most. That's the learner side, that's the creative side, that's the future side. That is where we call it chaos. So chaos is a place of opportunity. Chaos is a place of, well, definitely not of certainty or comfort, but it's a good place to be in, but it's not the place to stay in when you talk about your vision. Because at the end, your vision is actually that you go from chaos and create and use the opportunities and have a vision of what you want to achieve. And by that, the opportunity to create a strategy to achieve it. One of the quotes I always throw in is that I believe this starts with confessing that everyone is creative. I always say, creative people is not a species or a subset. There is a lot of confusion about it, but most of what we call creatives is actually on the side of artistic expression, which is still a creative solution, but it's a form of creativity and expression. But the way we create our branding, the way we connect, the way we have conversations, it all is rooted in our creativity. Creativity is that main tool we have as one of our abilities to actually do something in the unexpected, in the unpredictable space. So it's a key element when we talk about vision. If we leave creativity out of vision, and that's what I said, we have to redefine vision. Because most visions I've seen are just a repetition of the past. To sustain success, expand success, have a better version. But it's like all what we say in creative thinking. It's all, we still stay in the box. We make the box of gold. We start to protect the box. That's what we call religion. Start serving the system to keep the system alive. And that's what I think is wrong when you talk about vision. Vision is seeing something on the other end of what's possible, on the other side of what's convenient. So I always say, if you're human, you must be creative. Personal note, if I believe that I'm a son and daughter of God, who I call the creator, it's quite an insult to say to my dad that I'm not creative, because my kids look like me. Just something to ponder about. What I do is 4 times a year, and I repeat the challenge twice. I run what we call the Future Challenge, and we have 2 perspectives on it. This one is the last one I did. The other one that comes around is the next one I'm going to do. But what we do is, just at no cost, try to help individuals to get a glimpse that it is possible to do time traveling. You don't need to be Elon Musk to wait every word, because you could reveal that you're from space. But he lives in everything he says and does out of the future. You could do the same. It's a mindset, but you need to train yourself to use those abilities. We talked about the 5 senses, but we all know there is something we sense that's not mentioned in taste, smell, see, hear, and feel. Some call it the prophetic, others call it the 6th sense, others call it the intuition. For me, it doesn't matter how you call it. I love to call it the 6th sense because it's number 6 in the line of 5, and it just ruffles some feathers. So, which is always fun to do, but you can do this. I give actually away, and part of my mission is the process to do this, so that it's for every human possible. And I can only give you an overview, but it is like, first step is you have to start seeing today from the future, because actually we look at today as fulfilling the task list from yesterday. Step 2, you need to envision your future realities. How does home, occupation, and society look ahead of you when everything is possible? Then, what are the choices I have to make of the space in between those realities? Now we really can't lean on any understanding of stuff. We really have to start using our intuition, start to use the dreaming capabilities we have to define what roles we want to play in the future. And actually, they are the key ingredients for your future voice. And then we can start defining, when everything is possible, what deep inside we actually are dreaming of. If we know that, then we can define the setting, the surrounding of what we see as our future perspective. Another word for what vision really means. You have a vision of something what is not yet manifested, which actually seems impossible, but everything in you confirms that it's the right way to do. Yes, I hope I do. I hope I verbalized the process. Yeah. So this is what we do in the challenge. Of course, there is more. And from a marketing perspective, this is for me the most fascinating part. If you know where you want to end up in 3 to 5 years, and we know that the person you are today fits the current circumstances, then we can say that you need to become someone else. Sounds a bit rough. It's all about identity. It's not about what we do. That's what you get normal as people answer, who are you? And they tell you what they do. But actually, it's not about who you are. It's actually about who you become. So what if you find out who you become or need to become to fit your future perspective? You could start thinking about it daily, start behaving about it daily, and you create your future, because you will develop strategies, new behaviors, develop new competencies that fit your future. Because actually, I say just God has given you the power to create it. You just have to force yourself to it to start living it. If you don't believe it, who else believes it?
All right, Arjan,
Yeah.
I got a quick question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm curious. There's a lot of chatter over the last 10, 20 years, 30 years about positive thinking. And even in some circles, it's like, you just say it enough times and it'll happen. Where do you fall on that when it comes to this conversation?
That's a good question. I'll take this slide to look at. I think they sensed what it is about, but filled it in with the old reference framework. Because if I keep, like Einstein already said, the voice is ever extending, audio driven. We read Isaiah and saying that what God promises, those words will not come back void. So it's audio driven. Everything is spoken into existence. So if you repeat it over and over again, it will manifest, but different than you expect, because you have tied it to your past experiences. That's how our brain works with all our references. And where did you get that text from? Where did you create those lines from? If you create them or receive them, I would say, from the future, the prophetic, your internal voice, then I definitely believe it will change. If you just make them up because they seem convenient or fit your strategy in the now, then I think you just are back to fake it till you make it. And I think it's more fake than it will ever happen. Does that answer the question?
So you're literally backcasting from the future as opposed to grabbing some great phrase from the present or the past. I got it. I'm following it, and it's brilliant.
Because that backcasting means that you actually literally not forecast on what is possible and what you oversee and what you have budget for, but you do it from the desired outcome. And by that, you set yourself up for the impossible. And we know there is just one thing you have to add to the word impossible. It's a small quote. And then it's I am possible. So you have to just do it. If no one starts, it will never happen. That's what I believe. And actually, it's rooted in some old Jewish wisdom as well, where we say if God has created us to be free, he will not intervene, because then he violates that we are free. So there needs to be a partnership. Yeah, it's a deep one, and I'm still processing it. But for me, there is an invitation, because I know when I make my desires known, that he will help me. So there is something of active pursuing who you can become based on using everything you've got from your creator to start envisioning your future. And I would say that's a game. That's the fun game of hide and seek that we all play as parents with our kids. So going back to marketing and being mindful of the time, which will be a challenge by these conversations, I think you can redefine your buyer persona based on your future perspective and your future identity. I've looked many times to buyer persona as I'm not a marketing specialist. I know a lot of them, many actually. A lot of them are in this session. And I always had this problem, like, okay, when I find the ideal client for my product in the now, would they just lock me up to not move to the future I feel drawn to? So what if my business is my vehicle, not my destiny, not my legacy? No, it's my vehicle to get to the future. Then actually my persona, my ideal client, is the person that sits in my vehicle and drives with me. So it becomes my travel companion that actually pays for the whole trip for both of us. So what if I start defining my future persona as the ideal client that I want to travel with to the future? So that person, business, loves what I do today, but also loves where I want to go. So we have a relationship for the long haul, and it accelerates both. The client wants to have the win of the now and the win of the future, and wants you as a guide to get into the future. In that way, we don't have a lockup of our own potential, our own future perspective. But that means that we should define the persona who fits our future perspective as well. And actually, it's rooted in the same thing as what we see in creative problem solving. We always talk about future options, new creative solutions, and then we define someone who we met 10 years ago. That doesn't fit. They both come together. When Steve Jobs defined the iPhone, he also defined the usage of it in 2020. Because nothing changed over the last 12 years with that smart device. And that's what we have to imagine as well. Then the last thing I want to say from a future and a leadership perspective, define your future quo, not as goals. I know it's still there, but on the bottom line is the other line. Define them as learning milestones. The human habit is that when we achieve goals, we start to rationalize a vision because we want to celebrate that we made it. So if we start defining our milestones as learning milestones, then they will help us to make the right decisions, stay on track, slow down, accelerate, adjust course, and they will help us to navigate to our future. I want to take that one deeper, but then I first have to say, you are all a leader. I always talk to people as they are a leader. From the age of 2 years old, for me, they are leaders. If they are not aware that their choices has consequences for those around them, or other ways said, positive influence for others. So again, they need to be responsible for their actions. Then they become horrible people. But most people don't see themselves as leader. There's even like this huge lie that some are born as a leader. I know that there are, my friend says, I know natural born bullies, but I think that's also not true, but natural born leaders, we are all born as a leader with the gift of leadership, but we have to develop the competence. That's a bit the nasty trick. I think that's for all our talents. Our talents don't make us excellent. Our talents are the areas where we can become excellent, but we have to develop the competences. That's called the journey of life. So going to the challenge that actually part of this I will be using in the challenge that starts September 20th is that self-leadership is the key. And just to get you into the chat, I want to know from you what you think that the main element of self-leadership is. And I hope you agree with me. So just put in the chat, what do you think that the main thing is of self-leadership? Self-awareness, self-love. Yeah, like them. Oh. Clarity of some kind, definitely. I start with the last one in the cycle. For me, the last one in the cycle is self-reflection. Self-reflection is what we need once in a while to know if you're still on track, to adjust our learning milestones, and by that actually learn. If we don't evaluate experience and celebrate what went well, we didn't learn. And learning is the last step of a cycle. We need to self-regulate ourselves. We cannot have emotional meltdowns all the time. That's the thing. But we also need to focus on what is important for us. We need to do self-organization. None of us wants to hear from others how we need to do it. We love to hear when someone asks us what we can do, but we need to find out for ourselves how we do it. Self-organization. It's really important. The world says self-steering teams. Well, I think that's utter nonsense, because then where is the vision? Someone needs to hold the vision up. But as an individual, we have to be able to self-steer. We know our calling. We know our future perspective as an individual. Based on that, you should own it. Then we can start learning on one end, and at the other hand, can start executing. This is quite important when it's centered around intrinsic motivation instead of external inspiration. Sometimes I hear people say we need to motivate others. Well, think about it. I think it's impossible. And it's quite controlling if you want to motivate. Motivation needs to come from the inside, because then it's rooted in that it's meaningful for you. It has a purpose for you, and actually you own it. When it comes from the outside, you just do it because you don't want harsh conversations, but you will one day drop out.
So you're saying that intrinsic motivation as opposed to extrinsic motivation is healthier and more and longer lasting.
Yes, because that's the little flame that you have inside. But external inspiration can fuel that flame to make it a wildfire.
Got it.
So you need the external part, but that should inspire you. And how are you inspired? By people that are authentic. That people that share the purpose. That people that took the risk. When we read a book, we get inspired, not motivated. So your brand, you could say, should be an inspiration for others. And the resonance makes it that the fuel comes with the small flame and makes a wildfire. But you want the customer to come with you. And at the end, you want, and that's what I learned from Deb, the customer needs to own it themselves. So you need to serve them with understanding they have an issue, and you need to train them that they start owning their own problem. But that goes for my customer, it goes for me as well. I have to own my own vision. I should talk about it like we talked before, because who else is talking about it? The more I talk about it, it starts to be echoed around me, and it starts to become some kind of fulfilling. Going back to leadership, we know this one, and I call this not the hype cycle, but I call this actually that the only approach we can have in our business with the future is that we start taking risk. The biggest risk we take is actually not taking risk and missing out. And then we have regret. Risk, I heard many talks say, well, faith is spelled R-I-S-K. Well, I think risk means something different than faith. I think that risk means that you recognize the emerging future. For the visionary leader, that's priority. Then you start to find people around you that identify and help you to identify what the scope of change is. What's the impact of this new future that we need to act on? Then you start to develop a strategy to really take steps and start to activate everything. And then you have the majority of the people that just say nothing changed, but they still have to have an updated new reality to keep it alive. That's where sustainability and organization comes in play. But this is where you realign your business. But it all starts with being the leader, surrounded by that inner circle where you share purpose, and you live your own talk, and you just start moving forward. The biggest problem is that when we achieve the part of it, we start to enter la la land. It always happens. It was such a hard project of 90 days. And now we need a rest. Yeah, of course, but not camp out forever. So we all know from Good to Great, that book from Jim Collins, confront the brutal facts. Not every society, culture is used to that we confront the brutal facts. Most go for artificial harmony, which becomes just a stinking setting. So you need to confront the brutal facts because you need to go to the next future step. And if there are big steps or small steps, you need to get back in that track. If you don't want to control your people, you need to keep learning. Because if they outlearn you, you feel the temptation to control them. If you don't want to be beaten or bypassed by your competition, you need to stay unique. That was, I think, the one with creativity that I wrote down. You need to stand out, but you can only keep on standing out when you keep on chasing what you sense that's yours. So keep updating your future perspective, your vision, and move forward. If you don't do it, we start with compromising our values. We call it crash. And I say we compromise our values. That's a stupid line like, oh, I think we're doing quite well. Well, you know that something happened that was really off. Then you start to rationalize your vision. I think we achieved what we wanted to achieve. Like first we thought it was 5 steps, but now we've taken 1. We made it. It happens in every leadership team. Then anxiety kicks in. Then survival mode gets in. We start to control people, and then we become hopeless. By that, you've lost your business and you've lost your team. We see this all the time, that people are in this survival mode. And currently, in this craziness where most people think we are in a crisis mode, most people happen to act out of survival mode. So they're not in the flow anymore of going after their vision, don't know what they stand for anymore. Of course, there is always this realignment, but actually we are talking merely about inner healing right now, where you need to be reborn again, which maybe needs to happen once in a while as well. So one of the things that I didn't go deep into, but I think emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, where I take just one out of it, discernment, that sensing of the age we live in, or the prophetic, the awareness of what's coming, that's spiritual intelligence, connected to emotional intelligence, where we start to use all kinds of like, we need to be tender, we need to love people, we need to be patient, like all those things. But one of them I think is really important when we look to emotions is that we should start anticipate for what we have vision for. In other words, if our vision is containing foresight, so an insight of what's something that's not yet here, and we can put our emotions to it, we can, and then we start anticipating on that something starts to happen. Unfortunately, most people do not anticipate what's going to happen. They don't develop a vision or foresight, and they are taken by surprise. And it's just like a big bang. Well, I think a big bang is a myth. Even when you look to scientists and we talk about the Big Bang, how the Earth is created, well, I have my doubts about that theory. I think it's literally just a theory. But what scientists says, it was when a lot of energy in a small place came together. Well, coming together takes time. There's movement. So you see, we could have anticipated that Big Bang. I wasn't around, so I didn't. But when we plot that on now, if we have a future perspective that seems so impossible, but we get, which means it's based on what we believe for, what we have faith for, and we start connecting our emotions to it, then we could recognize it. So that anticipation to what you have foresight for is really something that's not happening around us, but it needs to come from the inside.
Ariane, what would you say to somebody who has had some success, some clarity of vision at some point, but they're in kind of that downward cycle where they're getting into more like survival mode, or something's off. They're not sure where they are. They're a little bit, maybe not hopeless, but they're like having some struggles. They're a little bit stuck. What would you say to somebody in that space right now? We've all been there, but how would you address that?
Well, I would nearly say, and it's not being in it myself in the moment, but looking back to those moments, it was actually ignorance what kept me in survival mode. The moment I started to recognize that really something had to change, I actually became quite hopeless, because it felt like I have no ability to do this. Then it's okay. And okay, now it's the time for me to find realignment, find wholeness, inner healing, get my priorities back. So I had to just go back to listening to what I call my inner voice.
Is that where what some people call a fresh vision would come from? Is that resetting of that?
It starts with fresh identity.
Right.
And out of your fresh identity, you start to become creative again the moment you start believing who you are. And out of believing who you are, you start to dream again. And out of the dreams, you can develop the vision.
Okay, that makes sense.
But one thing, I couldn't make it on my own. I needed some other people who confronted me with the brutal facts. Call it peers, siblings, brothers in arms. So, because I could just ponder forever in misery when I do it alone. So, thank you for the bridge. You knew the slide that was coming. We have this African saying that I think we don't understand. Because we tend to say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it feels like we have to choose. But what if creative thinkers don't choose and take the best of both and leave the worst behind? Well, let's do it. So I changed it to what I call the future proverb. If you want to go fast, go with peers. Because you need people that are not depending on you as followers, so they can stand your ugliness, they can stand your rough contributions, your weird questions, and just push you so hard that you find the right language, you find the right direction. You know, I grew up with some siblings. They're good people, they're still good people, but can't say they were the nicest people for me. But you need them, because what grew out of it, that I can be assertive. I can stand up for myself. That's what you develop with your peers. So the same is with your voice. If you want to find out your voice, your identity, get peers that celebrate you in making progress. Don't feel threatened by what you say. I've done this with my leaders. That became ugly because I became a threat to them. Because I started to say things and chase things that they really didn't understand. Well, and there you go. So I really encourage people to find their peers to go fast. And I just say, like, you give homework assignments, I give homework assignments for those who are still in. Like I say, find a safe place or safe space, maybe that's even a better word, a safe space where in a weekly basis, you can focus on where you want to go with all the rough edges. I call this for a leader priority number 1, called personal development. If you're not able as a leader to set 1 hour a week aside for personal development, you become a potential disaster for your own success. Because you start control, you will get out of flow. 1 hour a week. We all work 50 plus hours, so it's only 1 hour a week. Put it in personal development. Get yourself in a safe place where you are with people that share purpose, and get yourself into challenges. Like Timothy, you did this challenge 4 weeks in a row. I haven't done it for the last 3 months. I think, oh, I need an update. Just the repetition gets me into the competences. It gets me back that it comes top of mind. And when it's top of mind, it starts to influence my behavior. So I get the results. It doesn't stick. The only thing that sticks to us is reality, and that's quite harsh. So to break with it, we have to go for. Absolutely, Adam, I was doubting, but that's 2%, exactly. And find a facilitator you trust. You are part of the process. You are part of the business. You are part of the problem. You are part of the solution. So get a facilitator to help you and your team to move forward, to get perspectives clear. Don't try as the leader, the vision carrier, to run the vision process yourself, unless you don't contribute to it. But we know that's hard when you're the vision carrier. So find a facilitator to accelerate the creativity, the leadership, and the ownership of the individuals. And what I really advise you, engage with a futurist, someone that just blows your mind off what's possible, what's coming towards you, so that you get constantly fed by new perspectives of the future, because else you will slowly turn and start looking backwards to the future. It was an amazing movie, Back to the Future, but actually I think that's what we all need to do. We need a futurist in our life that keeps us back to the future. Every time, turn to the future. Like, we need to go upstream, not downstream. So we'd love to say, jump in the river. Yeah, but swim upstream. You know the mess that's downstream, the swamp, that's at the end, that's the downstream. Now you want to go upstream where the opportunities come your way. So get coaching, but that was mentioned. Make sure you get your perspective over and over refreshed, and get yourself into the emotional state of that you start to anticipate on what's coming. That leaves me actually one thing to serve you. Sign up for this challenge. I know that you need it. If you have done this challenge with me, then it's probably your refreshment time. This challenge will be about owning your future. It's November, we will run once more the perspective one to prepare you for the next year, however you think your seasons run. So I would say just do it. Put action where your thoughts are going, and it's at no cost. So that could not be the obstacle. It's not free, because it will ask everything from you because you have to confront yourself with perspectives that you have to make choices. But isn't that what we want? We want to be pushed back, pushed forward with peers. So get in, and we will just have fun running together to the future.
Arjan, thank you for offering this. I know not all of your resources and challenges are at no cost. So this is a special way to get into an environment of challenge and future and unwinding and backcasting in a way that makes sense, that won't be confusing. It would bring more clarity. Even if it's just 1 or 2 more steps of clarity, like just getting a little bit more clear on that vision. I love it. I love it. There's 3 questions that I've had the privilege of asking over 1,000 people in the last year and a half. 1 is, what's your vision? Number 2 is, what are your current challenges or frustrations? And number 3 is, what are your 12-month goals? Or in your language, what are the milestones you want to reach? And I tell you what, I've been really impacted by the answers, to the point to where I'm rethinking all of this for for me and our team and others and my family and everybody around, and just asking, at least on a weekly basis, what's the vision here? Where are we going? What's the promised land look like? What does the world look like? Because we're in it. like who can we align to help this come to shape? And I appreciate your help on that, Arjan, with some of our team, been involved in some of your challenge sessions, and really look forward to it. Really appreciate it. Hey, grab that time, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions that you have for Arjan? There's a lot to digest here. There's a lot more meat here than many are used to in 1 hour, especially since we went 2 hours. There's a lot to digest here, but what questions do we have? Thoughts, feedback in our last remaining seconds here? Got some-
Feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like, but thank you so much to Timothy and Arjan. Yes, Adam, we'll see you at the next challenge. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Well done. See you guys next time around, and look forward to it. Blessings. Have a great week. Good job, Arjan. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, everyone.
Invite somebody to those challenges. Blessings. Talk to you soon.